Thousands of years ago, one city became richer than almost every civilization on Earth. Its streets overflowed with merchants. Its marketplaces echoed with opportunity. Its walls stood as symbols of unimaginable wealth. Yet, the greatest treasure Babylon ever produced wasn't gold. It was an idea. Historians still study Babylon's engineering, its laws, and its remarkable financial system. But one lesson outlived them all. An idea so powerful that it survived the rise of empires, the collapse of kingdoms, world wars, financial crises, and nearly 100 years inside a single book. Because the people who build lasting wealth rarely possess secret information. They simply understand principles that most people quietly overlook. Civilizations rise because they create wealth. They endure only if they know how to keep it. And that raises an uncomfortable question. If the principles of building wealth have existed for thousands of years, why do millions of people still struggle with money today? Every year, people work harder, learn more, build bigger careers, start new businesses, chase greater opportunities. Yet somehow, financial freedom always seems one step further away. Was the problem ever a lack of money? Or have we been asking the wrong questions from the very beginning? Every generation believes it will finally become financially secure. Parents work, hoping their children will have an easier life. Children grow up, believing they will avoid the struggles they witnessed. Yet generation after generation, the same question returns. Why does wealth always seem to stay in someone else's hands? Nearly 4,000 years ago, long before banks, credit cards, or stock markets, the people of Babylon asked that very same question. Clay tablets discovered in ancient Mesopotamia reveal that people were recording loans, contracts, and interest thousands of years before the modern banking system existed. From that single question came a collection of financial principles that would outlive every empire surrounding Babylon. Then, in 1926, an American businessman named George S. Clauson brought those ancient lessons back to life, not by writing another finance textbook, but by telling timeless stories about ordinary people searching for extraordinary futures. Today, we're not here to summarize the richest man in Babylon. We're here to investigate why its lessons continue to influence investors, entrepreneurs, business owners, and millions of ordinary people, almost a century later. Because perhaps wealth has never belonged to the smartest, or the strongest, or even the luckiest. Perhaps it has always belonged to those who understood a few timeless principles before everyone else. And the first of those principles wasn't about earning more. It challenged something almost everyone still believes today. Most people believe wealth begins with earning more, a larger harvest, a growing business, a successful trade, more customers, more opportunities. It sounds perfectly reasonable, because when money feels scarce, the obvious answer is to find more of it. Yet history tells a very different story. Entire kingdoms overflowed with gold and still disappeared. Powerful merchants built enormous fortunes only to lose everything within a single generation, while others, who started with almost nothing, created wealth that endured for decades. Perhaps the greatest financial problem has never been earning money. Perhaps it's understanding what money expects from the person who holds it. Because money has always followed rules, whether people recognize those rules or not. Walk through any marketplace in any century, And you'll notice something remarkable. Some merchants return home with overflowing bags of gold. Others leave with little more than empty hands and fading hope. They traded under the same sky, served the same customers, faced the same opportunities, yet their futures could not have been more different. The marketplace was never the deciding factor. Luck wasn't either. The real difference was invisible. It lived inside the choices made long before the first customer arrived. Modern behavioral economists have reached a remarkably similar conclusion. Long-term wealth depends less on income and more on consistent financial behavior. Babylon understood this thousands of years earlier. Because wealth rarely changes direction in one dramatic moment. It follows small decisions, repeated quietly, day after day, year after year, until those decisions become a destiny. If you've ever wondered why money never seems to stay with you, you're asking the very same question that changed one man's life 4,000 years ago. More than 4,000 years ago, one city understood this truth better than almost anywhere on earth. Babylon, a city unlike anything the ancient world had ever seen. Its towering walls protected one of history's greatest centers of trade. Its markets welcomed merchants from distant kingdoms. Caravans arrived daily, carrying spices, fine fabrics, precious metals, and rare treasures from across the known world. Gold flowed through Babylon's streets. Opportunity surrounded its people. Archaeological discoveries show that Babylon used written contracts, commercial agreements, and organized lending long before modern financial institutions existed. Yet even inside the richest city of the ancient world, lasting wealth belonged to only a handful of people. Among them, one name was spoken with unusual respect, not because he inherited riches, not because fortune chose him, but because he discovered a handful of timeless principles that survived long after Babylon itself had fallen into history. His name was Arkad, and the first lesson he would learn was so simple that most people still ignore it today. Long before skyscrapers, before stock exchanges, before modern banks, Babylon had already become one of the greatest commercial cities the world had ever known. As the first light of morning spread across the desert, long caravans approached its gates. They carried spices, fine linen, cedar wood, ivory, precious metals, and rare goods from distant kingdoms. Every arrival created opportunity. Every marketplace rewarded those who understood value. Gold flowed through Babylon like a river that never seemed to run dry. Historians estimate that Babylon stood at the center of some of the most important trade routes of the ancient world. Yet something extraordinary was happening. The city created wealth every single day, but it did not create wealthy people equally. Some merchants returned home with growing fortunes. Others returned with little more than another day's fatigue. The opportunity was shared by everyone. Lasting wealth was not, and hidden among those crowded streets was one man whose story would outlive the city itself. His name was Arkad. Among Babylon's citizens, his name carried unusual respect. Not because he ruled, not because he conquered nations, not because he inherited riches. He earned something far more valuable: understanding. Yet Arkad's story didn't begin inside a palace. It began inside a small room filled with clay tablets. He worked as a scribe, hour after hour, day after day, carefully copying laws, business agreements, and financial records. His handwriting improved. His reputation grew. His discipline strengthened. But one thing refused to change. His purse remained almost empty. Research into human behavior shows that people often mistake hard work for financial progress. But effort alone has never guaranteed wealth. Arkad slowly realized that he had become highly skilled at earning, but he knew almost nothing about keeping. One evening, after watching prosperous merchants leave the marketplace, once again, he stopped blaming his circumstances. Instead, he asked himself a question that very few people ever dare to ask. Why do those who already possess wealth continue to attract even more of it? That single question changed the direction of his life. Perhaps you've asked a similar question yourself. Why do some people seem to move closer to financial freedom while others work just as hard, yet never escape? The same cycle? The answer was not waiting inside Babylon's marketplace. It was waiting inside a principle Arkad had never been taught. Most people spend their entire lives searching for better opportunities, a better market, a better employer, a better economy, a better moment. Arkad chose a different path. He searched for better understanding. Instead of blaming his work, his clients, or the city around him, he accepted a difficult possibility. Perhaps money wasn't avoiding him. Perhaps he simply didn't understand the rules that money had always followed. Modern psychology calls this an internal locus of control, the belief that lasting change begins with changing ourselves before changing our circumstances. Babylon understood that principle thousands of years ago. The quality of our questions determines the quality of the answers we eventually find. The moment Arkad changed, his question, his future began changing too. Long before his wealth did. He didn't know it yet, but he was about to meet a man whose wisdom would survive for nearly 4,000 years. And the first lesson was so simple that most people still overlook it today. Arkad had finally learned the first law of wealth. For the first time, money no longer seemed like a mystery. It followed principles, and principles could be learned, but understanding was only the beginning. Building wealth required something far more difficult: consistency. Many people discover the right path. Very few continue walking it. That is why Algamish's next lessons had nothing to do with earning more gold. They were about protecting, preparing, and growing the life that wealth could create. The fifth cure was unexpected. Make of thy dwelling a profitable investment. At first it sounds like advice about buying a house, but Algamish was teaching something much deeper. The person who constantly struggles to secure shelter will always find it difficult to build lasting wealth. A stable foundation creates a stable future. Throughout history, families who owned productive land or secure homes were often better protected from financial hardship than those who depended entirely on changing circumstances. Today, the principle remains. The goal is not luxury. The goal is stability, because wealth grows best where life has strong foundations. The sixth cure looked even further ahead. Ensure a future income. Babylon understood something many people still ignore. The strongest body will one day grow weaker. The busiest merchant will one day leave the marketplace. Time spares no one. The question has never been whether the future will arrive. The question is whether we prepare for it. Modern retirement systems, investment portfolios, and passive income all exist because of this timeless truth. Those who prepare early give their future selves choices. Those who delay leave their future to chance. If tomorrow arrived sooner than expected, would your future be protected? The seventh and final cure was perhaps the most important of them all. Increase thy ability to earn. Notice, Algamish didn't say, work longer. He didn't say, work harder. He said, become more valuable. Knowledge compounds, skills compound, wisdom compounds. The greatest investment has never been inside a marketplace. It has always been inside the person making the decisions. Modern research continues to show that lifelong learning is one of the strongest predictors of long-term career and financial growth. Babylon discovered the principle thousands of years earlier. A richer mind creates a richer future. As Arkad listened, he began to understand that wealth was never built by one extraordinary decision. It was built through ordinary decisions, repeated faithfully over an entire lifetime. But Algamish wasn't finished, because knowing how to build wealth is only half of the journey. The next lesson would reveal why so many people lose everything even after they become wealthy. Arkad had learned how wealth begins. He had learned how discipline shapes the future. He had learned that gold follows those who understand its laws. But Algamish was not finished, because earning wealth and keeping wealth are not the same skill. History remembers countless fortunes that vanished, not because opportunity disappeared, but because wisdom did. Empires have collapsed, businesses have failed, families have lost generations of wealth, not from poverty, but from decisions. Gold is surprisingly loyal, but only to those who respect its nature. That was the first law. Gold comes gladly and in increasing quantity to the one who sets aside at least a tenth of all they earn and invests it wisely for the future. Saving is not the destination. It is the invitation. Every coin you keep becomes another worker, searching for more coins. Money, left without purpose, remains idle. Money, guided with patience, begins building a future its owner could never build alone. Modern investing still follows this ancient principle. The greatest fortunes rarely appear overnight. They grow through consistency, not excitement, not luck, but time. The second law was even more important. Gold labors diligently for the wise owner, multiplying itself like sheep in a fertile field. Algamish smiled because he knew most people loved spending money. Very few understood how to employ it. The wealthy do not ask, "What can I buy?" They ask, "How can this money return with friends?" This single difference separates consumers from builders. Think about your own life. How much of your income works for you while you sleep? And how much stops working the moment you spend it? That question is quietly separated the wealthy from everyone else for thousands of years. But then, Algamish's expression changed. His next lesson was not about opportunity. It was about danger, because gold has enemies, and most people welcome them without realizing it. The third law was a warning. Gold clings to the protection of the cautious owner who invests only where wise people and proven experience offer guidance. Greed has destroyed more fortunes than poverty ever has. Throughout history, people have chased impossible returns, easy riches, perfect investments, miraculous opportunities, and almost every time they discovered the same painful truth. If something promises extraordinary rewards with little effort, someone else is usually becoming rich, not you. Modern financial fraud works exactly the same way. The technology changes. Human psychology does not. The fourth law was equally unforgiving. Gold slips away from those who invest in businesses they do not understand or ignore the advice of experienced people. Knowledge isn't optional. It is protection. Ignorance is one of the most expensive purchases a person can make. History is filled with people who lost fortunes, not because they lacked intelligence, but because they believed confidence could replace understanding. Perhaps the greatest investment is not money. Perhaps it is learning before risking money. Then came the final law, the law that completed the entire philosophy. Gold flees from those who force it into impossible schemes, unrealistic dreams, or the promises of dishonest people. Gold has no emotions. It follows wisdom. It avoids desperation. It rewards patience. It abandons arrogance. And perhaps that is why so many people lose wealth shortly after finding it. Not because money betrayed them, but because they abandoned the principles that created it. Modern behavioral finance has reached a remarkably similar conclusion. Our greatest financial enemy is rarely the economy. It is our own emotions: fear, greed, impatience, overconfidence. Babylon understood all of this 4,000 years ago. Arkad sat quietly. The laws were no longer about gold. They were about character. Because every fortune is first built inside the mind, long before it appears inside a purse. But Algamish had one final lesson still waiting. A lesson that would answer the question almost everyone asks after building wealth. How do you protect it for the rest of your life? Years passed. The young scribe, who once copied other people's fortunes, had become a man whose wisdom was now sought throughout Babylon. Arkad's purse was no longer empty. His investments continued to grow. His reputation spread far beyond the marketplace. But something far greater had changed. Money was no longer the center of his life. It had become his servant, never again his master. That is the transformation the richest man in Babylon quietly invites every reader to make, because the goal was never to collect more gold. The goal was freedom. Freedom to choose. Freedom to provide. Freedom to sleep peacefully. Freedom to face tomorrow without fear. History reveals a remarkable pattern. The men and women who left the greatest legacy rarely devoted their lives to chasing money. They devoted their lives to creating value. Money simply followed the value they created. Modern research continues to support this ancient wisdom. Study after study shows that once our basic needs are met, lasting happiness depends far more on purpose, strong relationships, and personal freedom than on increasing income alone. Babylon understood what science would confirm thousands of years later. Money is one of life's most powerful tools, but it has never been life's greatest purpose. Perhaps that explains why so many people achieve financial success, yet never discover peace, because wealth without wisdom, creates anxiety. But wealth, guided by purpose, creates freedom. Throughout history, wealth has never changed who we are. It simply reveals who we have become. Think back to the beginning of this journey. A young scribe watching wealthy merchants walk through Babylon, believing they possessed something he never could. He was wrong. They didn't possess a different future. They possessed a different philosophy. The gold was never the beginning. The thinking was. Perhaps the greatest investment you will ever make isn't in a business or real estate or the stock market. Perhaps it is the decision to become the kind of person money can trust. If every coin you earned stopped arriving tomorrow, would the decisions you've already made still protect your future? That question matters more than any investment you will ever choose, because money always leaves those who fail to understand it, but it quietly returns to those who learn to respect it. Thousands of years have passed since Babylon stood at the center of the ancient world. Its walls have disappeared. Its kings have become history. Its marketplaces have fallen silent. Yet its greatest lesson still survives, not carved into stone, but written inside the daily decisions ordinary people continue to make every single day. Perhaps that is why the richest man in Babylon has never truly been about Babylon. It has always been about us. Because every generation receives the same choice. Spend everything and hope, or learn principles that outlive time itself. The choice has never changed, only the people making it. But one question still remains. Will these principles remain words on a page, or will they become the foundation of your future? The world has changed. Babylon's walls have disappeared. Its marketplaces exist only in history. Its merchants are long gone. And yet, the questions people ask today sound almost identical. How do I escape living paycheck to paycheck? How do I stop worrying about money? How do I build a future my family can depend on? Technology changed. Currencies changed. Governments changed. But human nature did not. Fear still whispers. Greed still deceives. Patience is still rare. Discipline is still difficult. And because human nature has remained the same, Babylon's lessons have remained relevant. Perhaps that is why this book has survived for nearly a century. Not because it teaches money, but because it teaches people. The greatest investment has never been gold. The greatest investment has always been character. Because character decides what happens when money finally arrives. Think about where this journey began. Not with Arkad, not with Algamish, but with a question. Why do some people build wealth while others never seem to move forward? Now, perhaps the answer is becoming clear. Wealth is rarely created by one extraordinary opportunity. It is created by ordinary decisions, repeated for extraordinary lengths of time. Save before you spend. Invest before you consume. Learn before you risk. Think before you follow. Wait before you rush. Simple principles. Repeated faithfully for years, for decades, for a lifetime. Modern research continues to confirm what Babylon discovered thousands of years ago. Small, consistent habits often outperform dramatic short-term actions. Success with Suki is usually quiet. failure is usually gradual. Both are built one decision at a time. Perhaps the real treasure was never hidden inside Babylon. Perhaps it has been waiting inside every decision you make from this day forward. One day, someone will inherit the results of your financial choices. Your children, your family, or perhaps your future self. The question is, what will you leave them? More possessions or more wisdom? Because possessions can disappear. Principles do not. Arkad's greatest legacy was never his gold. It was the knowledge he passed to the next generation. And now, that same knowledge has reached you. Whether it changes your future depends on one thing. Not what you learned, but what you do after this moment. Because books do not change lives. Knowledge does not change lives. Action does. So the next time money enters your hands, pause for just a moment. Ask yourself, what would Arkad do? That single question might become the beginning of a completely different future. Thank you for joining Bright Shelf. If this documentary changed the way you think about money, share it with someone who deserves a treat to hear this message. And if you enjoy thought-provoking documentaries about wealth, psychology, history, and timeless ideas, subscribe and join us for the next journey. Because the greatest books are not meant to be read once. They are meant to be lived. We'll see you in the next documentary.